The Goat House is back with NFL free agents that definitely could end up getting overpaid this offseason. Some of these free agents maybe teams should beware of. We'll talk about specific numbers compared to current contracts, talk about landing spots as well. Let's take a look. Starting with the obvious one, I believe a lot of you out there agree that you think Sam Darnold will get overpaid around that $40 million range, which sounds ridiculous. Even a little bit under that is an overpay. And that's because you know what you're going to get with him. Last year's version of Sam Darnold was the best possible version of Sam Darnold, and that was on the Vikings. Kevin O'Connell, great system, great weapons, great offense, pretty solid team. And look what happened to him at the end. So when a team is signing him, they're praying to get that version of him, and there's a ceiling on that. Every team's goal is to get to the Super Bowl, and you know he is not going to get you there. You're praying for the best version of himself, which is not good enough. And you know it's likely you don't get that version of Sam Darnold. So essentially, it's a high-end bridge quarterback, not the long-term answer. You're still looking. So why on earth would you pay $40 million a year for that type of guy? You know, it just sounds ridiculous. And then you look at some other contracts as comparison or reference. I mean, the best of the best. Patrick Mahomes gets $45 million a year. Josh Allen gets $43 million a year. They're not the highest paid in football, but those putting Sam Darnold anywhere near that range, even though it's a different year and the salary goes up and guys just get paid more every year, it makes perfect sense. But anywhere near that range to me is ridiculous. But I use Baker Mayfield's contract as a complete reference for me and why I came up with he should get $30 million, $33 million, even though I probably wouldn't even do that. I'd put my focus elsewhere, but that if he gets a contract, that's what he should get. What he will get is closer to $40 million. But back to Baker. He got that contract last year. $33.3 million per year. And yes, the salary went up and guys get paid more every year. But just a year ago, and to me, Baker Mayfield is the better quarterback. And you just look at traits. There's two things that stand out about Baker that you look for when finding a quarterback. You may consider them elite traits. Not that I'm not saying Baker's elite, but that is escapability, more than mobility, but if you have mobility, escapability. Baker Mayfield has that. Sam Darnold, we saw that in his final game. The last two games, he does not have that. And Baker has that clutch ability. Not that he's the greatest or the most clutch quarterback in football, but he has that clutch ability late in games. Sam Darnold, I don't really feel has that either. They both can throw the ball. They're both fairly accurate. Those really aren't elite traits. Those are what you expect from a quarterback. So just a year later, I know the salary went up, but how could you sit here and possibly give Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield more than Baker Mayfield money? I'm picturing Baker on the Vikings last year. I think they would have been way better off. I know he went home in the first round, but I think the Vikings would have kept playing past where they were playing. But that's debatable and it's off topic. But so that's why I really use that Baker Mayfield contract. If it was 2 years ago, like a contract that was given out 2-3 years ago, then it'd be a little more debatable. But he got that $33.3 million just last year, and there's more traits to his game. So that's where I'm at. Teams to watch, and for all these players in this video, I kind of listed the teams to watch that could get him, that could go for him, but also would be teams to overpay for the guy as well. But I've been leaning towards the Raiders for some time before Schefter was pointing out, watch out for the Raiders when it comes to Sam Darnold. So I'm kind of leaning that right now. Watch out for the Titans as well. I've heard that their quarterback next year either is going to be those two rookies, Sam Darnold, or watch for Derek Carr as well if he's available. I could even see Kirk Cousins. But the Vikings are apparently open to bringing back Sam Darnold, which makes sense, but I think it's like a Kirk Cousins situation. They offered him way less than what the Falcons did. They would be open to bringing Darnold back maybe for 1 or 2 more years, much cheaper than what so they're probably not going to overpay. The Browns, do they have the ammo to overpay? Probably not. Steelers, Giants, heard some things about the Giants. It'd be a total Giants move to do it. But really looking at Raiders mainly and the Titans to not only bring them in, but also do the overpaying. But if somebody can get them around that $30 million range, that'd actually be solid. The structure is really going to matter as well. But Darnold, an obvious one here. Khalil Mack of the Chargers could be another one to watch here. Really solid player, was one of the better pass rushers of the last, I don't know how many, several years. And he could still play even though it was a step down last year. And the playoff game, he went a little crazy, so I think people got that fresh in their minds and they're overrating him because of that. As a career, definitely not overrated. It was elite, insane, still could play, but man, what are you actually going to pay him? 34 years old. He does have durability concerns, even though he's I think staying actually a little healthier lately than before, but he does have durability concerns. He's older. He's going to be declining. He could still make an impact and get after the quarterback. He's very solid stopping the run. So he's a good player. I think he should get in that 16 million to 18. It's a little bit of a range there. So obviously I still think he's worth something. I also think it should be like a 1 or 2 year deal. No one's going to give him a 4-year deal. But I do think he could end up getting in that 23 million per year range, which is pretty crazy for a guy that's declining, even though he's still good, has durability concerns. He's 34 going on 35. And where it gets confusing for teams, tough for teams, is you look at some of these other contracts, they're all over the place. Rashawn Gary, 24 million. I would rather have him than Khalil Mack just because the upside, and he is very talented, but 24 million end up being a lot for him. Max Crosby, one of the very, very, very best, top 3 at least, in football, and he does want a new contract, but $23.5 million. Bradley Chubb, if it wasn't for the injuries, probably be worth that. Trey Henderson's going to get a raise from $21 million. And then you got some questionable ones like Joey Bosa, Von Miller. So Matt could be looking at these and going, I need that money. I need more. And you see Khalil Mack listed there. His last contract was 19. I think he should be under that right now, given he's going in the wrong direction, not rapidly. And a guy like Harold Landry is coming back from an injury a couple years ago, but younger, upside. When I go for guys in free agency, the guys that I rank high are the guys that I'm going to give like 3+ years in a contract and going to be lucrative because they're very, very good. So this isn't a high-end free agent. Some people may disagree. So I'm kind of in the paying him in the range of, a little bit declining and durability concerns and very much up there in age, but he might get around, he might be looking to push over Bradley Chubb around that Rashawn Gary range, and some team might do it. I think that's crazy, but some team might do it. And he could go back to the Chargers. I could see the Bucs as an option if they clear some space. The Packers have been mentioned to watch. They're already paying Rashawn Gary $24 million, but they are desperate for more of a consistent pass rusher. Seattle's going to end up clearing space and having some space. The Lions and Commanders could be teams that are looking for a pass rusher and could afford to overpay possibly. Definitely one that I would beware of, even though he's incredibly still very solid and I can help a team on passing downs and running downs. Osa Odigizua of the Cowboys, their interior defensive lineman, very solid, up-and-coming guy. His best football is ahead of him, so you're not paying for his talent right now. You're paying to what he could be, throughout that contract. So he is definitely worthy of a pretty big payday. He had a career year last year getting after the quarterback. He's very good on passing downs. He definitely needs work on running downs. So it's a guy you hope to have on the field every single play, every down. But right now, you could do that, but he is more valuable on the passing downs, and a lot of teams need help with the interior, specifically stopping the run, because so many teams were so bad, and the run game's kind of making a comeback. So where do you value him? I mean, a lot of money, because the pass rush ability, upside, he just broke out. There's more breakouts coming, so you're going to pay him. You should pay him more than what he's worth today, like how he was this past year, and that $16.5 million to $18 million is a lot. To me, that's almost pushing it there, but I would do it just because the upside and his productivity getting after the quarterback. But because teams are pretty desperate, you also factor in how good the defensive tackle class is in the draft. And there's actually guys that are probably better stopping the run than Odigizua in the draft. So factor that in as well to my evaluation here. But I think he can push around $20 million or over, because he, again, upside, gets after the quarterback. Teams are pretty desperate for D tackles. There's a lot of washed up ones that teams are cutting or doing away with, don't want anymore, not useful. And there's just bad ones that are starting because the Eagles had them all. That's basically what it was. The Eagles and a few other teams. You look at some of these for comparison. He might get over $20 million for his upside, but it'd be pretty crazy. I know Hargrave was an overpay, but he was elite when he got that contract. Like, he was at an elite level. Didn't work out, obviously, in the Niners' plan to cut him. Leonard Williams was ridiculous last year. He just got that contract last year. Yes, Odigizua has more upside. That's what they might go off of. Williams is a lot better, but he's 31. He got $21.5 million. Odigizua just had a breakout year. He's got upside. So, hey, I'm looking for around that range, and some team might do it. Dexter Lawrence is elite, and he's $22.5 million. Vita Vea is borderline elite at what he does, stopping the run and then adding that extra, getting after the quarterback. So Ed Oliver is the good comparable player. I think they're pretty similar. Ed Oliver is known as better right now. He still has some upside, but they're both better rushing the passer than they are stopping the run. Oliver, honestly, might have been overvalued a little bit at that price range, and it was somewhat recent. So comparable players. So that's kind of what I'm using as a reference there, but I'd watch for him to get in that 20 million range, which sounds pretty crazy, but at least he has upside. Commanders, Dan Quinn coaching the defense there, very familiar with Odigizua. Chargers desperately need D tackles. Panthers as well, pairing a guy like this next to Derek Brown. Patriots. And then the Niners and Cowboys could end up getting him back, but the first 4 or so teams are the ones to watch, to be interested, and to be ones that could overpay there. But you would get a really good player with a bright future. Zach Bond was a star linebacker for the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles this year, and he's going to get a payday, and he's deserving. He was up there for Defensive Player of the Year this year, so an incredible season. But you are, when giving a contract, you are basing it off of one really good season in a scheme that, the whole defense was balling out under Vic Fangio. And a lot of the time, coaches / scheme create the linebackers. We see great linebackers, big contracts on a defense, and then a new defensive coach comes in, changes the scheme, and then they just go way downhill. We see it all the time. And it's not the most important position. So how much do you pay, even though he's a very good linebacker with a bright future, he showed that this year, how much do you pay him? That's the tough part. And the range, you see these contracts, they're all over the place. Fred Warner's the best linebacker in football. He's a guy that would fit any scheme, so worthy of the $19 million. Roquan Smith, I'm not saying he's not worthy, but that's a lot at $20 million. Tremaine Edmonds, I've been a fan of, but even I did not like that contract. So I maybe Zach Bond's going to go look at that contract and be like, yeah, I need that, and then that could ruin everything. Because that was just, and you see the drop off then. Matt Milano, when healthy, has been very, very, very solid. A guy you feel could fit the linebacker position in any scheme. So I think that could be more of his range. Patrick Queen just got that contract last year, and he was off a Pro Bowl level season. I know he struggled this year, but that can make teams kind of beware again. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah recently got the $12.5 million, which he is flashy. He's rangy, flashy, so you could debate that he's kind of in that range of those recent contracts with teams devaluing the linebacker position these days. How much do you pay him? Is he going to fit our scheme? Is he going to fit our coach? That's the question. So I think he should be in that 13 to 14.5, anywhere in that range, mainly because the position, even though he's very solid, but could end up pushing that Edmonds contract, which could just, imagine a team getting Bond, paying him that much, and your offseason's basically done because of a linebacker, even though he's a very good one. But Eagles will definitely want him back. Could they get like a hometown discount to stay with the Super Bowl champions? The Broncos, I could see the Broncos being very interested. Raiders, Seahawks, Titans as well. I'd watch out for a battle between the Eagles and the Broncos. The team was going to overpay. I'd watch for the Broncos there. But because of the linebacker position and a one-year sample size, even though he was decent before that and showed upside, it's a risky one here. And Spot Rack actually evaluated him in terms of a contract under $10 million per year. And Spot Rack, very useful site. They're very good with contracts, numbers, evaluations, projections. Big fan of the site. Don't always agree with it. Like here, they have him under $10 million, and they're semi-accurate with their evaluations as well. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So I think he should get more than that. But so they would think even my evaluation is an overpay. Is my point. Pretty crazy. Beware of overpaying Amari Cooper. He got traded to the Buffalo Bills and looked pretty good, like in that Chiefs game right away, and then disappeared. And yes, he wasn't 100% dealing with some things, but that factors in to me with that next contract. Small sample size, barely in the game. When he's in the game, he disappears. He has freaking Josh Allen as his quarterback. I'm just not signing Amari Cooper. I wouldn't sign him even for way less than what he should get. But he's going to seek this. He's not going to play unless he gets somewhere in this range. But it's an ultimate beware. And he could end up, if he gets healthy, he could end up being like he looked in that first Chiefs game, like that Amari Cooper, with any quarterback. It's definitely possible, but I'm just not taking that risk at this point. I need to see more of a sample size now, not his past. So if he gets a contract that I wouldn't give him, I think he should get around the 12 million to 13.5 million range. I think he could get around the 17 million range, which is deadly to a team's cap space. You're paying for kind of the older Amari Cooper, and you're banking on him staying healthy and him being right. And Christian Kirk got that eye-popping contract a few years ago at 18 million. Kirk has some durability concerns, but I would rather have him, younger, more of an impact right now. When he's on the field, he is an impact. Jerry Jeudy recently got that contract. He was very productive, even with the Browns, with their quarterback situation. I would value him much, much more than Amari Cooper today. Lockett, they're probably going to cut him off that contract. Cortland Sutton is severely underpaid at 13.75. A couple contracts that were given out last year that make this very tough for teams. Darnell Mooney, 13 million. People thought that was an overpay. I actually liked that deal, and I thought he was very solid. I think Mooney is much more valuable than Cooper right now. That's me. Maybe not much more. Gabriel Davis was a complete overpay, so kind of the opposite of Mooney. So Cooper could look at that and be like, give me that. At least that would make sense to me, though. Hopkins, he's coming off that contract, so don't pay attention to that. Jacoby Myers recently got 11 million. So putting all those together, I think he should be in that 13.5 million range, but I fear he can kind of get around that Jerry Jeudy money, who's a much younger player, much healthier player. And to me right now, he's proven he's a better player. We don't know what we're going to get from Amari Cooper. The Bills sound like they want him back, and man, they might have messed up at the trade deadline. They put so much value in him that they feel like, God, we got to get him back or it's a fail. But by paying him a bunch of money, it might be a fail. I could see him, if he ends up being cheaper, going back to the Cowboys. Would they actually overpay for him, though? Packers, Patriots, Chargers, Commanders looking for a receiver and then could pay him a bit if they're that desperate. But definitely one for me to beware of. Even if he ends up going back to healthy and good, I still don't want to dish out that money for him. Another receiver, Darius Slayton, who I'd probably rather have than Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's better right now and could be better, but Slayton a lot younger, has some upside. We talked about the Giants. Some guys leave the Giants and play way better. No one's playing super great besides the obvious stars for the Giants, so I think he could have a lot of upside elsewhere. I think he should get, again, because he disappeared, wasn't that productive, and it's kind of been ongoing. It might be a Giants thing, but because of that, I'm still valuing him at 12, 13 million, which I think deep down, I think he could be worth more than that. But I think he could be better than what he's been. But you don't have to pay him off that. You do not have to overpay. You pay what he's kind of been doing and add a little bit extra because what he could be. He hasn't really been worth the 12 to 13 million range. But I think that's what he should get. He might get around the 15 and a half, 16 and a half, even 17 million range, because we'll see what happens with T. Higgins. T. Higgins might get franchise tag at the time of recording this. He has not, but it sounds like he may. He might not be available, or maybe he will be tag and trade. But very likely could end up with the tag or back with the Bengals, and that takes an outside receiver off the board in free agency. So teams that are like, hey, our plan was to go in free agency and get an outside receiver, so we're going to do that. And Slayton's the next guy up in terms of the younger upside guy. Doesn't mean he's going to get anywhere near T. Higgins' money, but his price might bump up a little bit, so he might be a winner of free agency. But I think he should get, again, look at Darnell Mooney got last year. Mooney was better. But it's similar because his production was underwhelming, but he looked really good right when he came in. I think bad quarterback play hurt him. Bad quarterback play hurt Slayton. But has he ever showed like a Darnell Mooney level? That's kind of the question there. So that's where I'm at with the range. Panthers, I've mentioned to watch out for them going from the Titans as well. Commanders, Patriots. Definitely watch out for those teams, Chargers and Packers, some other ones. All of them definitely could overpay, could pay a lot, and will be interested, especially those first four teams I could guarantee will be interested in Darius Slayton. But he could end up being kind of a sneaky get, maybe like a Darnell Mooney was of this free agency. Justin Fields, one of the free agent quarterbacks, was with the Steelers last year. He's an interesting one. I have listed 15 million plus would be the overpay. I could see a team giving him much more than that too. Does he get 20 million? Does the team pay him to be their starting quarterback? When he's been the starter, he hasn't had a good season as a starter, right? Even winning games, the Steelers benched him because they know he's not the guy. They figured they'd go at Russell Wilson, who was struggling before that. He gives you some flashy plays, especially on the ground, but He hasn't had a good starting season. He's slow processor. He doesn't see the field that great. Doesn't see open receivers and drops his eyes and looks to run. And typically from college to the NFL, that doesn't really change, and it hasn't for him. But now we're a few years in, some starting experience, and we can't really expect that to change right now. So I would hesitate to pay him to be your starting quarterback, but that's the thing too. Look at last year. Sam Darnold got the 1 year, $10 million contract. I think the league thinks higher of Sam Darnold, especially now, but just being more accurate, sees the field, he can throw the ball. And the Vikings paid him 1 year, $10 million, thinking at that time he's very likely going to be our starting quarterback, and he ended up being their starting quarterback at 1 year, $10 million. So that think about that. And then Gardner Minshew, it didn't work out for the Raiders, but they paid him $12.5 million. So even that didn't work out. But Gardner Minshew had actually solid starting experience. Not great, but some decent starting experience to go off of. Justin Fields really doesn't have that. So in my head, how is he, not having great starting experience, how is he going to get more than that? And yeah, again, kind of going back to the Vikings knew, and Raiders, they knew those guys were going to be their starting quarterback. If you're signing Justin Fields, I don't see a team signing him and going, I hope this guy's our starting quarterback and he's great. Like, they're looking in the draft. They're still looking for their quarterback in the future. So how on earth are you going to go over that? I know the salary went up, so maybe a little bit over that, but I don't think he's as good as those guys. Maybe, he could be better than Minshew, but that blew up in the Raiders' face there. And you can get rookie quarterbacks for cheaper that have more upside. You kind of reset the timer. You can work with those guys. Maybe you would rather take a Jalen Milroe in round 3, who's somewhat similar. You kind of reset the clock with a guy like that. You have to work with them. So I think he should be in the $9 to $10.5 million range. I don't think you should get him with plans of being your starter. That's a flashy backup, and he could start for you, I suppose. But somebody could get desperate for a quarterback because the draft class isn't that great, even though I would rather have some of those day 2, early day 3 guys that just way cheaper, more upside, a guy you don't know what you're going to get, which is, compared to Fields, I think a better thing here. But teams to watch could go back to the Steelers, who benched him last year while he was winning, so I think it's interesting. The Saints, I think he could fit Count Moore's offense there. The Colts are looking for some competition for Anthony Richardson. The Giants and Browns, possibilities as well, but definitely beware if you're trying to pay Justin Fields as a starting quarterback when deep down you really do not want him to be your starting quarterback. Drew Dahlman, the Falcons center, who's actually one of the best free agents of the offseason, and there's a big drop-off after him when it comes to center, so if you really value center and you badly need one, you're going to be going after Drew Dahlman. He's a tricky one to evaluate, to put a value on him, because he is really solid. His best football's ahead of him. There's not a huge sample size to base that off of him being very good, even though he was solid recently, and he's coming off the injury. A lot of teams don't value the center position. That kind of makes sense. Draft the guy in the mid rounds. I'd put him around that 11 to 13 million range. He's very good. I think he's deserving of being one of the top centers in terms of paid. Spot Rack, who deals with contracts evaluations, they have him under $7 million per year. So I think he's worth more than that. But so they're going to think my range is an overpay. I think he's going to get paid more than my range. They're going to think it's a colossal overpay. So it depends on where you're at with centers, and he is risky because he's coming off an injury and there's not a giant sample size of him playing well. I think he could very well end up being one. It's going to be tough to hop Creed Humphrey because that's a massive amount of money for a center, and Creed Humphrey's a lot better. So I don't see him getting there. Frank Ragnow, I know he has durability concerns, but to me, when he's healthy, I think he's better than Creed Humphrey, actually. So for Dahlman to get more than Ragnow is pretty crazy, even though it's a new year with new salary. And he does have upside, but there's gonna be teams battling for a center because they don't want that next step down in this class, and they don't want to deal with getting a rookie. I would probably rather have a rookie, depending on the price, because Dahlman's very, very good. I have him kind of high up in my free agent rankings, but team can get desperate and pay him a bit here. Just how much do you pay a center? The Falcons definitely could want him back. The Bears are being linked to him a bit. They're going to value the center position. The 49ers haven't valued it, but they could going forward. Packers, Chargers, Vikings, could they move on from Bradbury and just get better because their interior was a mess, and they love their tackle duo as they should there as long as it's healthy. So big time free agent. So anybody that gets him is going to get better. He's got a lot of upside. It's a little scary, though. A little bit scary depending on the price range here. And then the Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins, I can honestly see getting underpaid. I don't know if there's such thing with a guy with that much durability concern, or I could see him getting overpaid, so a pretty big range here. But while he's in this video, I mean, he's a monster. Like, when he's in the game, he's great. He looked great last year. That was a healthy year for him, and he missed a portion of games, and that hurt the Chargers. So think about that. That was a healthier year for him. So major durability concerns. I think last year is your best case, like him playing very well and only missing some games. Unfortunately, that's what it feels like right now with the amount of injuries he's had, the amount of times he's missed the entire season. So I think he should get around the 4.5. You even hesitate to do that, because how much is he going to play for us? And that is it's a 1-year deal, probably maybe 2, and that's a hit. You know, even though it's not as much as the quarterbacks and the pass rushers get paid, the receivers even, that's a hit. Even the 4.5 to 5.5 million range. Devin Singletary got a 5.5 million contract last year. That was just last year. You're going, Dobbins is way better than him. I agree, but availability is big when you're paying these guys. So, but could get in the 7 million range because running back value during the year went up. You know, so he could end, and he's that good. Talent-wise, he's worth that. You know, so I could see it just because the running back position was more valued during the year. Will it be this year? We'll see. And he played well, and a team could go, he's on track of staying healthier. I would disagree with that. I would have to disagree with that, unfortunately. You can get a rookie, as you could see, the running back class is good. You can get a rookie for a very solid price. You have to keep that in mind as well. So he's an interesting one. I would beware just because the durability concerns are crazy. But the Chargers definitely could want him back. If he goes back there, it could be for cheaper. The Browns definitely could be interested in him. The Raiders are looking for a running back. I mean, look at those teams with the Vikings and Cowboys looking for backs as well. I don't know if the Cowboys might be a little hesitant to overpay for someone. Do the Vikings bring back Aaron Jones? We'll see, but he's an interesting one for sure. It's just the major durability. The availability, how much do you pay a guy with a major concern there, even though he's a very talented running back? But that's going to wrap up this one. So some interesting free agents here to watch, and we'll see who gets them, how much they pay. At the end of the day, if you overpay a little bit, that's okay because you're getting better. You'd rather be better than have a little bit more money. I mean, more than a little bit more money, but you kind of got to be careful about, massive overpays and hurting your future, because some teams, we've seen it, teams that do that, and they get multiple guys and overpay big time. You don't feel it then and there. A year, 2, 3 years down the line, you're really feeling when you get to free agency. Teams are not being able to do anything, can't get better, staying the same because of that. So that is the reason. Got to be very careful and be cautious. But, man, there's not the best free agency class. There's not a ton of big-time guys, so teams might get desperate. Might be a bidding war. So, but there are some very solid guys at the top for sure. But, yeah, we'll have you covered fully of free agency. We'll have our rankings come out. We'll have our predictions coming out, and then grades throughout free agency. So join us for that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.